Okay, it is 6 o'clock. Let's get started. Good evening, everyone. This is the Redwood-Rosedale-Springbrook Neighborhood Traffic Calming Meeting number 1. On behalf of the City of Ann Arbor, I'd like to thank you all for joining us. This is an opportunity to engage with community members, so we appreciate your time. I know it's a weekday, it's after the workday, so we'll respect everyone's time and get started here. These traffic calming projects rely on resident feedback, so we really appreciate and encourage participation. Um, if you did not get a chance to complete the demographic poll that I just closed, we will relaunch it at the end of the meeting. It's an optional survey that the city uses, but we'll relaunch it at the end. So introductions first. My name is Christy Thullen. I'm joined by Christina Janish. We will be leading tonight's presentation. The traffic calming team for this project is a partnership between the City of Ann Arbor and Wade Trim. Wade Trim is an engineering firm based here in Southeast Michigan. We've been contracted by the city to assist with their traffic calming program. So this includes the engineering design work, project management, hosting public meetings, sending out communications to neighbors and residents. Other Wade Trim team members working behind the scenes include Chris Wall and Lori Pollock. So if you see any of our names or just Wade Trim is referenced in anything throughout this project, just know we're working as an extension of the City of Ann Arbor. We're working on their behalf. And this partnership is specifically with the City of Ann Arbor Traffic Engineering Department. We have Cynthia Redinger, Callista, and Ariana. Those are our support. At times we coordinate with other city departments, but we work with and report directly to the Traffic Engineering Department. This is our meeting agenda for tonight. Most of tonight's time will be dedicated to the meeting number 1 portion under section 3. That's where we will review our devices, present the starter idea, and collect feedback from everybody. The goal of tonight is to make sure everyone is familiar with the traffic calming program and just what to expect throughout the process. Throughout the meeting, so a couple sides just on technology. Throughout the meeting, we'll have opportunities for questions and discussion. If most people here, it looks like, are joining either from a computer or probably the app on their phone, there are going to be a couple ways that you can ask questions and provide feedback. So everyone is muted by default. And if you'd like to speak, you can virtually raise and lower your hand using the button down here at the bottom of your screen. After you did that, it'll notify us that you have your hand raised. We'll recognize people by name. Once you're recognized, either Christina or myself will be able to let you unmute yourself, and then you can speak. Additionally, if you would rather type a question or comment out, you can use the Q&A button. That's also down at the bottom of your screen. Chat box is going to pop up. You can type the text. Press send to submit your message. Just note there is an option to send messages anonymously if you'd like to do it that way. Just make sure you check the box before you hit send. I do see we have at least one person who's joining by dialing in by phone. So anyone who's dialing in by phone, you can still request to speak. You'll just press *9. We'll recognize you to speak by the last 3 digits of your phone number, and on our side, we'll automatically unmute you so you can speak. Unfortunately, through this phone dial-in, you aren't able to use the Q&A function. This is another feature we'll also be using tonight, Zoom's polling feature. If you did the demographic survey, you've already figured out how to use it. But again, if you are on a computer or using the app, when a poll is launched, it'll just automatically pop up for you. You'll be able to read the question or statement, select your response, and then press submit. When the poll closes, the results will also automatically be shared with everyone. You can press close to stop viewing results, or additionally, we'll close the results for everyone when we're ready to move on. And again, if you're dialing in by phone, you can still participate in polling. You'll just have to press *9 to be recognized to speak. We'll recognize you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. We'll unmute you, and you'll be able to verbally give your response to the polling question and be placed on mute after. And we'll read the questions out and all the options for people who are joining by phone so they can get the information. Just a note that polling is anonymous during the meeting, except for those participating using the dial by phone option, just because we're recognizing you by the last 3 digits of your number. And then just as a test, we will launch our first official poll. And this is just simply asking, do you live in the project area? And as a reminder, our project is Redwood Avenue from Springbrook Street to Platt Road, Rosedale Street from St. Aubin Avenue to Redwood Avenue, and Springbrook Street from St. Aubin Avenue to Redwood Avenue. And I will give some time for everyone to give it a try to participate in the polling. While we do that, there are a couple things that popped up in our Q&A. One person is asked, at the end of the meeting, will you share how many people joined the call, not including Wade Trim and Ann Arbor staff? So currently we have 14 attendees, 14 unique attendees. Some might be on multiple devices. But this is also something that will be summarized in the meeting discussion that will be posted on the project website. We may get some people who join in late too, so I can give a final number at the end of the meeting as well. There's also a question posted. Is the survey used for anything to make decisions about the options? If you're referring to the demographic survey at the beginning before the meeting started, that has nothing to do with this project. That's just what the city likes to use. They provide these demographic surveys. I don't know if all of their public meetings, but they were asked to include this in their public meetings. The surveys and questions that we're doing now, this isn't to make hard decisions, but it's to help direct the conversation. Looks like we're at 80% participation right now. It doesn't look like everyone has answered the polling question that's up here. I'll give it another moment, but if there's no objection, I can close and move on. All right. And then as I showed in the previous slide, here are the results. You're able to see, looks like pretty much everyone here, except maybe the people who didn't participate in the polling. Everyone here is a part of the project area, which is great. So stop sharing and we'll move on. Lastly, during the presentation, especially when we're opening the floor to dialogue and feedback from your fellow community members, just we'd like to remind everybody to keep these Zoom norms in mind. We want to be respectful of time. So, we started at 6. We want to make sure that we're ending on time. We've allotted 2 hours for this discussion. So, if for some reason we're approaching 8 o'clock, we just really have to make sure that we're wrapping things up. Please raise your hand to be recognized to talk. We're only going to have one speaker at a time. If you are speaking, move to a quiet area and try to silence any background sounds when you're speaking. Just make sure you're speaking loud and clear so everyone can hear you. That goes for myself. If anyone's having difficulty or if I'm going too fast, please just let me know and I can adjust. Everyone's going to be provided a chance to speak before we have any repeat speakers. We want to make sure we're opening the floor to everybody. With that, also, please just be respectful of other ideas and perspectives. No finger pointing. Try to make sure we're framing things and differentiating between facts and opinion. And then lastly, any inappropriate written and/or verbal comment or language, including personal attacks and accusations, will result in the attendee just being removed from the meeting. So if I've missed anything, I'll pause here. You can raise your hand, you can use the chat. Feel free to use the Q&A function freely. We will be monitoring it throughout the meeting, but just to keep with the meeting schedule, we may wait for dedicated breaks in the presentation to answer questions live or to recognize any speakers. So yeah, if there are any questions or comments at this point, use the Q&A function or raise your hand, or I can keep moving. I am not seeing anything, so I will move forward. So next, we're just going to talk about what the traffic calming process is, the city's program. Here's a quote. Traffic calming is the combination of mainly physical measures that reduce the negative effects of motor vehicle use, alter driver behavior, and improve conditions for non-motorized street users. This is a quote from the Institute of Transportation Engineers Journal. Really all it's saying is the focus in traffic calming is to make changes that will not only make roads safer for drivers, but safer for pedestrians, wheelchair users, bicyclists, scooters, etc. The city has had this program for a number of years. There's many examples of traffic calming in Ann Arbor. We'll show some of them in later slides, but yes, this is an emphasis on all road users, not just drivers. So the traffic calming program here in Ann Arbor, it's designed to provide residents with a formal process for engaging with the city in a partnership to perform a technical analysis of traffic concerns. This is for local streets and to explore potential solutions using, fundamentals of traffic calming. It's a 5-step program. Wade Trim is currently assisting with step 2 up to a portion of step 5. We'll briefly describe each step, but there is a guidebook available online. You should have also gotten it in your initial mailing with the questionnaire, but there is a guidebook available online and it has way more detail if you want to go and review anything after this meeting. So step 1, this is the resident initiated petition. This is, so this neighborhood project started with one of your neighbors acting as a petitioner who submitted a request to the traffic calming program. The request was for Redwood Avenue from Springbrook to Platt, Rosedale Street from St. Aubin to Redwood, and Springbrook from St. Aubin to Redwood. So this project area was defined by the petitioner. They gathered signatures from other residents who also live within that area. And send it out with the application to the traffic calming program. Here are it's a summary of the results. The requirement for the traffic calming program to accept the request is that at least 50% of that defined project area must support the project. And then the city does a preliminary technical study, and that must yield at least 10 points. So with this project, your petitioner collected signatures from 65% of the project area, and the preliminary study that the city did resulted in 31 points. There is a breakdown of the points. It's posted on the project website. You can go back and check that out if you'd like. But in summary, yes, this qualified. And then we moved on to step 2, the initial questionnaire. This is where we stepped in. We might have started seeing mine or Christina's name. We sent out mailers with an initial questionnaire. This was to all of the project area residents, just to gather feedback on any specific concerns you might have, what experiences you may have previously had with traffic calming, and just kind of give you like an overview of the program with that printout of the guidebook. We got the results from the questionnaire. The requirement was that in order to continue on to step 3, at least 50% of those who participated in the questionnaire must support the project moving forward. So that's not 50% of the project area. It's just whoever participated in the questionnaire, at least 50% of them had to support the project. So this project did meet the minimum. We received 74% response and support. Again, the summary is also posted on the project website, but here just as an even more summarized summary. In general, results of the initial questionnaire indicated that, cut through traffic, speeding, pedestrian safety, and, existing backup issues were common concerns. We've got a major intersection right outside the neighborhood with Packard and Platt. So, neighbors observe cut through traffic trying to avoid that signal, that there are already backups on those main roads. So these were some of the main concerns. And then it may be a little difficult to see with yellow on yellow, but these stars are where the questionnaires indicated were important pedestrian crossings. And that doesn't necessarily mean that there are, sidewalks or crosswalks already there, but this is where we're observing a lot of people crossing the street. There were also additional comments in the questionnaire responses, but there were a handful that were mentioning areas outside of this project area. So this yellow highlight is our project area. And we did get some mentions about things that were outside. So just know if you don't see your concern specifically or the pedestrian crossing you might have noted, it may be because that it wasn't part of the project area. I'll pause here. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand, you can use the Q&A. If there's anything else, like any other context we might be missing. So we did get a comment here. Based on the point system that you referred to, the streets of interest earned 210% more than the minimum points required to begin the traffic calming process. What does that mean or say at a high level about the streets being studied? So we are going to follow the process for the traffic calming program with the public engagement. I have not had any specific instruction about whether or not this neighborhood qualifies for anything broader in the city. Part of that is us doing this public engagement to get feedback from people kind of quote unquote face to face, if any other concerns arise and if there's anything larger that the city needs to maybe take a look at. Got another one. Will recording be available later? Yes, this meeting is recorded. We will probably chop off the beginning half and while we are waiting for the meeting to get started, and we will post the recording to the project website. And then I see a hand raised from Jared. Go ahead, you can unmute yourself and speak.
Hey, Christy, thanks so much. Sorry, my question was about the 210%. It wasn't very clear, but that just surprised me. 210% seems a lot more than a minimum. And so I was curious, like, if that says anything about, because that sounds like it was a point system based on Wade Trim or Ann Arbor. Um, just what that means about the like current safety of our streets based on the metrics that were um studied to get to get those points.
Oh, okay, so you're asking if the number of points means like a greater issue or a
Yeah, pretty
larger.
much
Okay.
based on the metrics that I think I saw on the slide and kind of what made those points go up and up.
Yeah, the metrics were, I can go back to the slide. They were going back to, this was set up by the city when they did the programming. So these are just indicators. It's not meant to, it's not meant to give a size to the issue, if that's an appropriate comparison. It's
Hmm.
just on qualification. So this isn't to say that because 31 points were earned versus 11 points that it's a bigger problem or like a stronger issue um,
Okay.
to
Yeah,
evaluate.
I see. Okay. I saw like speed related crashes and things like that that seem a little bit more significant. So I was just curious if that spoke to any of that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I know with the crash data specifically, they're if there is crash data in a neighborhood, they're looking at, are they speed related versus was it,
Mhm.
someone hit a parked car.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. All right, I'm going to keep moving. Oh, so yeah, we just read this page. Da, 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 da. Just a couple comments on what Jared was saying. Are they asking if this is standard or greater than others? Again, this is, the points that were given in the preliminary study um, isn't meant to be a full evaluation of safety. It's just a list of the metrics, the metrics that the city is using to try to shape a potential solution. So again, a more detailed summary of the questionnaire results are on the project website. And then step 3 is where we are today. So this is where most of our focus will be for the rest of the meeting. Before we present the starter idea, we'll go through an overview of the device toolbox that's described in the program's guidebook. I will launch another poll here. Da, da, da. So this is asking, have you reviewed the traffic calming guidebook, specifically the device toolbox found on pages 9 to 12? I'll give you a moment there. There was another note here. The pedestrian traffic will be hard to discuss without including the crosswalks on plat. We are only able to focus on the study area, and the program defines only local roads. So unfortunately, if there's notes or things that we want to include about the surrounding area, feel free to bring those to the table, but ultimately we can only make decisions that affect the project area. And I'm sorry, I did get another comment in the Q&A asking, what do you typically see? And unfortunately, I'm not sure what that was in relation to. If someone wanted to add to that, either Q&A or raise your hand, we can go ahead, Jenny. You can unmute yourself.
Thanks. It was in regard to just kind of digging more into Jared's question about the 210%. And I'm just wondering, on that continuum of 10 points to 100 points, is 30 a lot, or is 30, pretty typical for a neighborhood?
So I know that the city, when these come in, the city already um, takes a look to see if they qualify for other programs that they have. Other than that, the point scale that's given with this qualification matrix that they do, it's just to know whether it's qualified or not. The solutions that we come up with or the discussions we have, they're not really aimed at at severity or, like I said, like a full-on safety evaluation. Um, we do have Cynthia on the call too, who is the traffic engineer for the city. Cynthia, I don't know if you want to add on to that. You can jump in whenever,
Yeah,
unless you think that's.
I can definitely add on to that. Thank you, Chrissy. Like Chrissy said, I'm one of our transportation engineers. And really, the way to look at the points is there are a lot of paths to moving a petition forward. And so we wanted to give communities that have different types of needs the ability to go ahead and move forward through this program when we created this point system as a scoring for how to get into the program. So as your neighborhood is set up and you have nearby attractors and you have a above a minimum amount of participation in your petition process, you've scored some of those extra points. And as Christy is saying, it's not an indicator of need. It's just it as necessarily like in a relative scale to other projects. So these qualifications are a variety of ways that a project can get to a point where it qualifies for the program. And sometimes petition scores really, really high because they got 90+% of the residents on the street to sign off on the petition. So there are a lot of different ways, and it's not a scale or a factor to compare projects against each other. It's just a variety of ways to get to an approval to move forward in the program.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Still didn't answer it.
I'd see that we have 80% of participation. Maybe we're just not getting. I do see we have some people who are maybe on multiple devices, so that's probably why we're only showing 80% of participation in the polling. So I'm going to go ahead and close it. Looks like with reviewing the traffic calming guidebook, specifically the device toolbox, we're kind of almost evenly spread. Looks like most people have at least taken a look at it. So we're gonna try to get through this pretty swiftly. Because of the structure of this program, the designs that we're proposing or that we proposed, they are limited to the device toolbox and the program's guidebook. This means if it's not in the toolbox, it is not an option for this project. Some of the commonly suggested solutions would be things like stop signs, street closures, police enforcement, new sidewalk installation, any removal of existing devices. Um, there is additional information on those things on the city's website. If there are concerns that keep arising, we can try to direct you and put you in the right direction or get you in touch with the right resource to look at things that are outside of the toolbox. But for the purpose of the program, we do have to stick to what is in the toolbox and what the program guidebook outlines. So on pages 9 to 12 of the traffic calming guidebook, devices are grouped into things you can drive over and things you can drive around. Do have a disclaimer. Some of the devices that are in the guidebook, we're not going to cover them tonight. That is because they are either not feasible for this specific project, either from an engineering perspective, or they do not meet requirements set by city stakeholders who also provide input throughout stages of this project. So things you drive over. These are devices that slow traffic by creating discomfort if traveled over at a speed exceeding 25 miles an hour. The device toolbox presents 4 devices that fall under this category. We've got speed humps, speed tables, raised crosswalks, raised intersections. We are going to skip over the raised crosswalk and raised intersection. Those devices are currently under review by the engineering department, by the traffic department for their ability to comply with ADA guidelines. So this public engagement, it's pre-approved by city council. So we want to try to give quick and efficient solutions for the neighborhood that are, shorten the timeline, shorten, efficient cost-wise. So things that start to involve multiple departments or extensive engineering, they're originally in the toolbox, but the city is now reviewing these to see how they can better implement them. So things you drive over, we've got a speed hump here. This is a typical speed hump diagram on the left. This photo here is from Wells Street. This is shown on the right side. Speed humps are typically 12 feet long, 3 inches high. They have a parabolic shape. They extend the full width of the street except for the gutter. Studies have found benefits of speed hump treatments may include, speed reduction, traffic volume reduction, crash reduction. There are some things to note regarding speed humps. That 3-inch height that the city has set, I'm not sure when it was implemented, but it is now the city standard. I know some people reference other neighborhoods where they've seen speed humps look a lot different. But this height is designed for ease of bike usage and bike safety. In this photo is a good example. As long as it was legal prior to any device installation, vehicles can still park in the street on speed humps, so you don't have to worry about that. Additionally, trash cans can be placed on speed humps if necessary too. And then speed tables. There's a constructed example on Glenwood Road near Washtenaw Avenue, but you've got a typical diagram here. So these are, again, raised devices. It extends the full width of the street, except for the gutter. These ones are typically 22 feet long with the edges are tapered where you see those arrows on the diagram. and the center platform is typically 10 feet, but it's a flat center platform and still maximum height of 3 inches. So instead of that parabolic shape, you've got a taper and then a flat platform and then another taper. Benefits of speed table treatments may include traffic volume reduction, crash reduction. Additional notes are that the speed reduction with a speed table may be less than a speed hump, the slide that we showed previously. Typically, we're using these in areas where if our public school bus system, if that stakeholder weighs in that they want to see tables over the humps. The platform width, I said typically it's 10 feet, but that can be customized. Again, the 3-inch maximum, that's designed for ease of bike usage, for bike safety. If previously permitted, vehicles can park on speed tables, and then also trash cans can be placed there as well. I'll pause here. If there are any questions about the devices you drive over, go ahead. You can raise your hand. You can use the Q&A. I see we had a couple pop up. We've got one. Is there any analysis on the drive over options as to which one is most effective? So the notes that I gave about speed table, speed humps, studies have indicated that they can, lead to speed reduction, volume reduction, but there's no one best option, I guess, just because a lot of times we're putting this, into context of the neighborhood that we're putting it in. Are we using other devices? So we do have to kind of look at it as like a whole picture. We look at the devices individually, but then we have to look at, how do these all fit in the neighborhood as a whole? And then Jenny, I see you have your hand up. You can go ahead and unmute.
Sorry, I think I just hit it. I
Oh,
just
okay.
questions or some comments about sidewalks since we don't have
Yeah.
sidewalks.
Yeah, I
And
saw the Q&A in here. So I saw unfortunate that you can't be creative with the toolkit guidebook since we are a neighborhood with significant sidewalk gaps and a traffic issue. There is I can give information in like our summary post meeting. I'll keep it moving for now, but the city does have a sidewalk program. I understand there can be some frustration with how narrow things might feel when we're looking at multiple issues contributing to the traffic issue. But like I said, because it's pre-approved by City Council, we are limited to focusing only on the project area and only on the guidebook's limitations. And then Sabrina, I see you have your hand raised. You can go ahead and mute.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, I am wondering if you take into consideration people's having physical issues. I live in the area, right on Rosedale Street between St. Aubin and Redwood. And going over the sharp speed bumps create a jostling effect in my body that's actually causes me a lot of pain. And so I intentionally avoid them whenever possible. Okay. And so it would really be a nightmare for me to have to experience them every time I enter and exit my home. But the speed tables, like the ones on Glenwood, I don't have a problem with those. They're much smoother on my body. They don't create such an up-down jostling. So is it possible to put those in on the Rosewood section?
On the Rosewood section, let me just write it
Or I
down
mean,
here.
Rosedale.
Rosedale.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you have no idea how many times I've said Rosewood instead of Rosedale. Um, let's see. Rosedale speed tables. So let me get back to you on Sabrina on that, because that is not the first time that I've heard that specific um, comment regarding speed humps. But like I know typically we've only used speed tables when we get input from the Ann Arbor public school, the bus stakeholder that we have. I know they would like to vouch for them, and there might be restrictions on when we're opting for a table over a speed hump, but I'll have to get back to you on what the restrictions, if any, there are. Does that sound good?
Yes, please. Yeah. Thank you.
Of course. I got another note here that we don't have sidewalks, so speed humps and speed tables would still be out of compliance, still be out of ADA compliance. Um, they're they're not meant to be, the speed humps and speed tables. They're not meant to be traveled over on foot, like by any pedestrians or anyone who would be. Um, Go ahead, Jenny.
Yes, you're reviewing the intersection tables, or the city is, and the um, crosswalk elevations for ADA compliance. Well, we don't have sidewalks, so everybody in this neighborhood walks on the street,
Oh,
and, bikes on the street and wheelchairs on the street. And so that's why I'm really pushing for, something that you go around rather than go over,
okay.
narrowing the streets.
Go around. Okay, thank you for clarifying. Can you give some additional examples of stakeholders who might influence decision making? Our we've got, so we send out these, starter ideas, any kind of preliminary designs that were coming up. They get sent to Ann Arbor Public Schools. They get sent to the fire department. The fire marshal has a handful of restrictions um, that we have to follow on top of the guidebook. The police department, I believe the city transportation. I'm not sure. Let's see if I'm forgetting any. But those are the main ones. And then, if the conversation ends up going over to, sidewalks, the sidewalks program has to have input, and then sometimes forestry. Is there a reason we would choose one of these devices over the other besides the bus issue? Is noise an issue? So a lot of these, we're trying to introduce you to the device and kind of give you just a neutral description, and give you just things to consider. I don't even want to call it a pro and con, but just things to consider. Um, because as a neighborhood, if we're putting in speed bumps, like Sabrina had mentioned, if we're putting in speed bumps, we may see effective, they may be effective, but will neighbors want to live with having to drive over speed humps on their daily commutes? Can they have a mix of speed humps and speed tables as part of our neighborhood's potential solution? So again, I'm tabling, sorry, I am putting a pin in that comment. I do need to go back to the city and just double check if there are any restrictions to, how we pick and choose between table and hump. Assuming it is possible, sorry, I'm just for everyone, so I know people can't see my screen, but I'm just reading through the Q&As that are popping up. Assuming it is possible to have speed table on one street and speed bump on another. I think that might have been piggybacking off of the other comment. And then we've got, is there a reason we would choose one of these devices over the other? Oh, did that one get, maybe I just didn't clear that one out. I did answer it. Did I understand you say that these devices are not intended to be walked over or biked over? They won't be marked like a crosswalk would. But I mean, they are you can cross them by foot. Like if you're in the street, the maximum height 3 inches, you should be able to safely walk over these devices. What I'm meant to say is like it's not like it's a dedicated crosswalk for you to be using. And then we got a comment in support of Jenny's comment on the sidewalks. Okay, I cleared the Q&A. I don't see any other hands raised. We've just got to get through a couple more devices, and then we can move on to the starter idea and start talking about specifics about what we want to see in this project. So the other section in the toolbox, it's a group of devices that you drive around. So this type of device slows traffic by creating the perception of less room for error and a road that is visually or physically narrower. So the toolbox has 7 devices that fall under this category. We've got pedestrian gateways, median islands, pedestrian islands, residential traffic circles, mini roundabouts, curb extensions, and chicanes. Like I mentioned when one of the questions asked about the stakeholders, the fire marshal is probably our like the primary party that we want to make sure we get support from, because they have veto power over any of the devices that we propose. They've given us restrictions on, they want to make sure that they can get their devices, their emergency vehicles through neighborhoods without damage to their apparatus or their equipment. So this neighborhood street, a lot of these devices, it's just not wide enough for the clearance based on the standards that the fire marshal has given us. So we will go through the curb extensions and the chicanes, which are just a different layout of a curb extension. So we've got curb extensions here. We've got 3 different, sorry, I'm gonna get my laser pointer here. Got 3 different layouts here. Curb extensions, they can be used in several designs. We've got the curb bump out, which is usually at the corner. You've got the mid-block bump out, and then if you put, one opposing bump outs, they call it a choker. Curb extensions, they just act as an extension of the curb line. This physically and visually tightens the corridor by narrowing the street width. Like I said, you can do 2 parallel curb bump outs. It can be used to either create like a single lane width passageway or just a choke point. If you alternate them, like in this slide here, that is a chicane where you alternate the bump outs. Curb extensions, when we're considering installing them, we have to consider that they may also require drainage considerations. You would potentially lose on-street parking. Sometimes there is an increase in maintenance because they may get debris collected around the devices. And one of the requirements that we have for the emergency response vehicles is that we have to maintain 20 feet with unobstructed width for emergency response vehicles. So if we did a 1 or 2 lane choker, we can see things as like speed reduction, potential traffic reduction. A lot of times these things rely on additional things like regulatory signing and just like driver education. But another benefit with the curb extensions are that they can shorten pedestrian crossing distances. It can also improve pedestrian visibility. So if you have areas where you are allowing on-street parking, and then you have a bump out, it may increase pedestrian visibility for people who might be approaching the street. And then also be used to eliminate illegal parking. And then here we've got just that other slide with the alternate design with the chicane here. Again, with this same thing, we have to consider drainage. We have to look at drainage considerations, whether or not we're losing on-street parking, what the increases are to maintenance, and making sure that we're maintaining that minimum width for emergency response vehicles. And lastly, the guidebook also describes something, a neighborhood gateway treatment. This is a physical landmark that just indicates you're changing from a higher speed arterial road to a lower speed, like a residential or commercial district. Installing these gateway treatments can do things like increase awareness for residential speeds. And, with that, they may require additional right of way. So with these treatments, with this kind of installation, the neighborhood or the adjacent property owner would bear the landscaping, installation, and maintenance costs. All right, we're going to pause here again for questions. I see the Q&A is filling up. Got one here. Have they changed in the last 15 years? Am I reading these in the right order? Yes. All right, I'll just let you unmute, Jenny.
It's about the widths of the streets. When I was on the stormwater project many years ago, maybe it was 10, 12 years ago, or longer. Rosedale was wide enough that if they had to put in the new technology that I don't even know if they're doing it anymore, we would be wide enough to lower, like to extend to have that new technology put in. Because you can have two cars parked, one on each side, plus two cars can pass. It was deemed well beyond the needed width. So going back to making the street narrower and adding one lane of sidewalk on one side or the other of the street would solve two problems at once.
So again, I have to say that we cannot include sidewalks in this discussion right now. The city does have the sidewalk program. I do know that we've been instructed that has to be initiated from the neighborhood. It can't be initiated through the traffic calming team. If that is a strong interest, I know sidewalks were a big comment in the questionnaire. So, I don't know if Jenny or the petitioner, Nick, I can provide the resources, and the connection to fill out the application for the sidewalks program.
I think we've done that, and there was about a 50-50 split on people that wanted them because they didn't want or couldn't afford to pay for them. And the issue is that we're all paying into the tax and the millage on this, but we have no benefit.
Is that something, like, if that's something that wants to be revisited, I can, but like I said, I understand that adding the sidewalk would be a benefit to the neighborhood. But when we're planning this, like, I can't plan on the promise of a sidewalk because it's not something that we can include. Rosedale, okay, going through the Q&A, is there a difference in effectiveness in traffic calming between bump out chicanes and speed humps, tables, or crashes? So there are studies done that provide percentages, but it's because of the nature of this, with it being, looking at the larger picture and how do these devices fit in a neighborhood as a whole, or like, the project area as a whole. I can't assign percentages to, what kind of reductions you may see. I can say that, these devices, when used the way that the way that we're given guidance for, they can result in these things, but I can't assign like a specific percentage or say that one is like the ultimate solution versus another. And then we've got another comment. In our neighborhood, do these drive around devices mean only one car passing at a time when they're installed? So if we were to do this, let me see, double check something here. Sorry. So in most cases, I'm just doing some spot checks on our road width here. It's not exact, but roughly there is about 30 feet of road width on our project area streets. So Rosedale, Springbrook, Redwood here. We've got roughly 30 feet. There is no set size of a curb extension. It can be adjusted to fit the neighborhood. That being said, if there's some people who don't want to have to deal with like a single lane choke point, if we just wanted something to, give more of like a visual effect, they can be sized. So it doesn't have to be that it's extended to only one car passing at a time. And there was a question, I thought that these were not an option, that these drive around devices were not an option. I'll go back to this slide here. So right now, some of these drive around devices are are not applicable for our project, but these curb extensions and chicanes were included to just put on the table to discuss. Another question, how is this paid for? So the city, when the public engagement ends, if we have a plan that is that has enough support to move forward, it goes to city council for budgeting. Sometimes it gets combined with resurfacing, but I believe Cynthia may have to fact check me on that. They may have its own separate budget. Let's see.
Did you want me to add in there?
Yeah,
Sure.
On the budgeting.
Yeah, so traffic calming as a program has its own dedicated funding source that is budgeted every year, at least it has been for many years. And those are the funds that we expect to utilize to pay for this project. Going back to the question about whether sidewalks can be included in this project, this program is intended to change driver behavior. And so that's why the tools that are being presented are all about driver behavior and things that you drive over or you drive around. Sidewalks have a separate funding. Yes, we did have a point in time where the sidewalks were installed through a millage or through the, sorry, no, before the millage. It was the responsibility of the property owners and it was assessed to the property owners. But now that we have the millage, and as long as the millage continues to be approved, we do have that funding source for the installation of sidewalks. The sidewalk program, as Christy referenced earlier, it is a separate program from this traffic calming, from the traffic calming program. And there is a prioritization process that we go through annually to determine which sidewalk gaps are being filled next. And that does have an elaborate scoring matrix that we use to score those and determine which projects will be happening next. If the community does petition for sidewalks, that does give a extra points in that process for the sidewalks, and it does increase the sidewalk gap score. Christy, I noticed that there were several questions in the Q&A about the concerns about access, non-motorized access, and ADA compliance. And I think that those are some thoughtful and challenging questions. And what I can say right now is that that is not a consideration that we have had as part of this program previously, but I think it's an important and serious consideration to evaluate and how we want to move forward. So we will be scheduling an internal, city staff will be scheduling an internal meeting to consider those requests around access and those concerns and make a determination about how the program needs to move forward. And we will communicate as much with the petition area as soon as we have information to petition on that. So I just want to acknowledge that that concern has been heard. We will take that concern seriously and we will evaluate and get back to the neighborhood on that.
Thanks, Cynthia. Jared, I see that you've got your hand raised. You can go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, thanks, Christy. And I apologize if I've missed this. But I just wanted to clarify something. So I think I've heard that for items that you drive over are not meant to be walked over or, you know, like riding a bike over. But because of the fact that we don't have sidewalks, does that limit us only to the things that you can drive around? And again, sorry if I missed that. I guess how serious is that you're not supposed to be walking over these?
Oh, yes,
Like,
I apologize. Um, I'm also realizing that I'm probably talking way too fast here. Um, so when I said that they're not intended to be walked over, what I meant was it is not a these are not marked like a crosswalk would be.
I
So
see.
and when I was referring to these aren't meant to be used as crosswalks. Um,
I see. Okay. I just
but
so it is
if
possible to have
yes,
things you drive over on a street that does not have sidewalks.
yes,
Perfect.
sorry.
Okay.
Um,
Thanks.
that 3-inch maximum height that we were referring to, that's there for, bike usage. So, going with the street, yes, they are able to be traveled across by bike or foot, or other wheeled device, but it is not meant to be used as a crosswalk traveling across the road. Okay, we've got a couple others here. Da, da, da. Is there any advantage between the two drive over options during snow removal season? Between speed hump and speed table, I would say no. When new devices are installed, there is coordination within the city to notify maintenance, so that, same with any of the other devices, whether it's drive over or drive around, um, just to flag them. So maintenance is aware new devices exist and the road may be different than previous. Got a comment about the gateway treatment being nice. Got another one saying, can we have native plants and wildflowers in those bumpers like mini rain gardens to help with drainage? I do not believe that is something the city would do, but I can't say whether or not the city would undo it if someone were to put one in.
Hi, Christy. I can jump in again.
Yeah.
Once again, this is Cynthia Redinger. And I just want to point everyone in the audience to Chapter 40 of our ordinance and codes. It is the chapter that talks about vegetation and the limitations on the height of vegetation in the right of way, particularly at intersections and crosswalks for sight distance and clearance, and that is a lower level. So something like ground cover that would be, something that could be supporting pollinators and those and the birds and the bees, right? But the height of the vegetation is limited such that the types of plants that you would normally see in a rain garden type setting that are native grasses that are taller with really deep root systems are not a good fit for things like bump outs because they get too tall and they cause site obstructions for driver to driver, but more importantly for driver to pedestrians, particularly shoulder pedestrians.
Thank you. Going through, still have a couple more in our Q&A here. Some options like the one that is going to reduce width of the road and parking. When do we reduce the options for this consideration? When do we reduce that one? If the person who sent that one in, if there's any clarification, I guess I'm not sure I understand that one completely. When do we reduce the options for consideration? Oh, Nick, you have your hand raised. Go ahead, you can unmute.
This is a process. At some point, I would think of all these options, we narrow it down to, okay, here's the only three that the community has chosen to down select. How does it work? How do we get the 7 down to, I don't know, whatever, 3, 4?
Oh, so these devices that we're going over, the ones that I've shared, they're options to consider. And then after we get through this, we're going to share the initial starter idea that we put together. And then we get, this is where we get feedback from everybody to weigh in on, what they like, what they don't like, based on the devices that we reviewed. Would they rather see something else? We're here to help facilitate the conversation, to let you know if there are engineering limitations to any kind of options that we're looking at. But I wouldn't say that the goal isn't to only pick one type of device on here. That's not what this is saying. These are the options that can be considered when we're looking at a layout for the neighborhood. Does that clarify? Oh, Nick, you're still on mute. I don't know if you had additional.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so net, a community could land up using multiple options. Is there a limit that you can only pick one of these options, or a community, 3 streets could pick 3 different options applied at different places?
Yeah, we're not saying you can only choose, one or two devices from this toolbox that we're sharing. We're saying these are the ones that we can consider. We're here to help make sure that it's from an engineer perspective safe, from the city perspective that it's compliant. But yeah, this is not to say that you can only pick one device or, X number of devices.
Thank you.
Of course. We did have a question, Cynthia. This may have to be one for you. If we can't include sidewalks through this process, can we pause this traffic calming process while we investigate the sidewalk program?
Hi, Christy. Thanks for that question. I think that is an unprecedented item of work. So that's not something that we've ever done on a program. I'm not saying yes. I'm not saying no. I think that unfortunately we will have to put a pin in this one as well and get back to the community on that particular issue, as
Okay.
well as the ADA considerations.
Okay, great. Let's see. Where there's one. We've got Anne Marie. I see you have your hand raised. You can go and unmute yourself if you'd like.
Hi, I am one of the people that was against the sidewalks during the whole infrastructure restructuring 10 or 15 years ago. And I'm not alone. And I wish that we could take the conversation away from the sidewalks and back to the issue at hand. I am completely understanding people who want sidewalks, but my trees are right in the line of fire of where a sidewalk would have to go. And part of the charm of our neighborhood is our ancestral trees. So that's all I have to say about that. I understand the sidewalk issue, but what we're talking about is the people racing down our street, running through our stop signs, and putting our people and dogs and citizens in danger. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne Marie. Let me just go here. All right. I've got a couple notes. Let us. I know we still have some that haven't been answered in the Q&A, but I am going to move on. We're at like 7:13 right now. So I want to make sure we're able to have proper discussion around the actual the starter idea. All right. If you want to see other examples of how some of the devices are used, there's an interactive map on the traffic calming website. Project areas are color coded to show, what's been constructed already. Either you can look on the interactive map, or you could, drive to the site and take a look too. What's in progress and what may not have qualified. With that, I'm going to hand it off to Christina, and she's going to lead the exercise. I will still be in the Q&A and helping monitor and back up.
Hello, everyone. My name is Christina Janish. I'm also an engineer with Wade Trim. If you have received a letter or an email, I did those. So it's great to have you all in this meeting, and thank you for all your feedback thus far. So up next, we'll present a starter idea, which is a draft plan we've created based on engineering judgment and data collection exclusively, including the preliminary traffic study and feedback from the initial questionnaire. There will be an opportunity to answer questions on each device and discuss any changes you may want to see, keeping in mind this project is limited to the devices we've reviewed and additional engineering and design. This is a starter idea. It's a launch pad for conversation, and obviously does not incorporate the conversation that we've had just now and thus far. There are planned resurfacing and utility improvements overlapping some of the traffic calming project area. So far, this means there may be coordination with schedule and final placement of any traffic calming devices that will be installed. So this is the starter idea. I will list every address that has a speed hump in front of it, just because I know they can be a little difficult to see on a computer screen or a phone screen. There is a recommended realistic spacing for vertical devices, which is 250 to 500 feet apart. The effectiveness of speed humps is greater when used in a series. So it does help to have one right after another on a street instead of just one per street. So I will go ahead and cover, if Christy could use her little pointer and kind of circle around on the overall plan. Thank you. Device number 1 is near 3064 and 3075 Springbrook. Device number 2 is near 3140 and 3141 Springbrook. Device number 3 is near 3196 and 3210 Rosedale. Number 4 is near 3040 Rosedale. Number 5 is near 3110 Rosedale. Number 6 is near 3166 and 3167 Rosedale. And number 7 is near 2995 Redwood / 3210 Platte. All right. So this device number 1 near 3064 and 3075 Springbrook Avenue. As Christy outlined, speed humps can result in speed reduction, traffic volume reduction, and crash reduction. Some things to keep in mind are that legal on-street parking is still permissible at speed humps, and they are designed to be safe for vehicles and pedestrians to travel over. If you have any questions, please raise your hand or submit through the Q&A on device number 1. All right. Device number 2 is another speed hump near 3140, 3141 Springbrook Avenue. Again, they result in speed reduction, traffic volume reduction, and crash reduction. And we do make every effort to dodge driveways. I think I've only ever seen one that was sort of tangentially adjacent to a driveway, but we make every effort to make sure that it is not square up in line with anyone's driveway, which can be a little bit tricky in higher density neighborhoods such as these ones. I do see that Sabrina has her hand raised. You can go ahead and unmute.
Sorry, my question was about Rosedale, so maybe I'll wait till you get there.
Okay.
Because I think you said there were 4 on Rosedale.
Yes, and we will go over them once I hit Rosedale. Okay, so we are on device number 3, and I will address the overall questions minus the one specifically on Rosedale once we get to the end of the device list. Number 3 is a speed hump on Redwood Avenue near 3196, 3210 Rosedale. That is where that one is as a zoom. Device number 4 is a speed hump on Rosedale Street near 3040 Rosedale Street. Another item to note is that there is a minimum distance from any sort of fire hydrant that a speed hump can be, just so fire trucks are not straddling or half tilted on one. I believe it's a minimum of 40 feet away. So if you're wondering why some locations were picked specifically, it is likely due to a fire hydrant feature.
I just want to add, Christina, there was a comment, or a question that popped up in the Q&A asking if this is one of two plans or if this is the only test plan. So this is just our starter idea. We're gonna, get feedback tonight, and then when we meet again at our next meeting, we'll have, possibly made adjustments to the plan. So we'll see the next iteration of it at meeting number 2.
All right, this is a close-up of device number 5, which is speed hump near on Rosedale Street near 3110 Rosedale. Device number 6 is a speed hump on Rosedale Street near 3166 and 3167 Rosedale. Sabrina, would you like to speak on the ones on Rosedale?
Well, just reiterating my concern that speed bumps are a nightmare for me and painful. I'm wondering why there are 4 on Rosedale. There were 2 on Springbrook. What's the thinking there?
Springbrook does have a cross street that sort of rearranges how devices can be laid out. There is no cross street on Rosedale, but we are gathering your comments and they will be incorporated into the not starter idea, the preliminary plan.
Yeah, I mean, that would be just the worst thing for me. And these are bumps you're talking about, not speed tables.
They are speed humps. So if you think of a speed bump like you might see in a grocery store parking lot, those are very severe. They're very short. Usually they're about 3 feet wide and 4 inches tall. These would be 12 feet wide and 3 inches tall, and they are rounded. So we call them parabolic in shape. So they taper up gradually to a peak rather than sort of just a lump in the middle of a road, if that makes sense.
Okay. I still would like to prefer the speed table, because I know that I can handle those. So I'm just adding that to the comments.
Thank you very much. Just to address one comment that I saw in the Q&A, there are, zoom in on the picture again. There are 3 on Rosedale, and when I say they're near an address, it's just phrasing. They're just in proximity to that address. If that answers your question at all, Jenny.
I was just trying to clarify for Sabrina. There is one very near her house, I believe, in this diagram, but only
Yes.
3 on the street.
And then, Anne Marie, I'm going to allow you to unmute to ask your question.
So for the lady who is concerned about the speed humps as opposed to the the wider ones, is there one like that she could experience in existence so that she might feel better about it? The lady on Rosedale who has the issues with the bumps.
Yes, there are. So there are existing speed humps throughout Ann Arbor. I know we referenced a map that you can click online that will show you all existing, under construction, and then proposed traffic calming locations. The one that we like to use as an example is on Wells Street.
Mhm.
That one is recent. It has that newer parabolic shape, and is the example that most people drive by and go for
Okay. All
when
right.
they want to speed.
I was just trying to offer that to her for an option. That's all. Thank you.
I just, Christina, I just pulled up the project map and took a quick look. Creek Drive had a traffic calming project completed in 2006 that used speed humps. Let's double check. One on Maplewood, off of Packard, also used speed humps. So those are pretty close to the neighborhood if you were curious to drive over there.
Or walk over there. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Jen, I believe you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. So I'm thinking about it, the intersection at Springbrook and Redwood, where there are stop signs that are often treated as yields if treated at all. And I'm also trying to remember, I think that somewhere in this process I read about how these speed humps or speed bumps interact with stop signs in terms of slowing or speeding up traffic, and that. I think I'm just hoping that you can help me remember what I read, but I think that what I read is that when there's stop signs in a neighborhood, people will often speed to the stop sign and then stop and then speed again. And so I'm wondering how you typically observe the addition of a speed hump in relation to a stop sign. So in other words, does that encourage people to actually stop at the stop sign, or are we likely not to see a change in behavior around the stop sign at that intersection?
So that is likely in reference to the distance between traffic calming items, that 250 to 400 or 500 foot gap between your traffic calming measures. If it's any wider, people will speed up until they see the next traffic calming measure. If it's much closer than 250 feet, it's uncomfortable for everyone involved, and we do not want to install them any closer than that. We also cannot install speed humps directly prior to a stop sign, just because you don't want someone to stop directly on top of them and then need to get going again, or it's just inadvisable. If there needs, we would more evaluate a speed table rather than a speed hump immediately preceding a stop sign. But that might be what you're recalling.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. So we've shown the overall image again. And device number 7 is the final speed hump near 2995 Redwood Avenue and also 3210 Platt Road. The next few slides will be asking questions about each device. So you will get that pop-up voting apparatus either on your telephone or on your computer screen. If you are calling in, you press *9 in order to cast your vote. And we will be going through location by location and voting on the traffic calming measures as drawn. Anne Marie, you have your hand raised. You are able to unmute.
Okay, sorry. The thing is that you just said that you can put the wider thing right before a stop sign as opposed to a hump.
Uh, if a speed table can be installed at an intersection,
Yes, speed
but we
table,
cannot
because
install, a hump
yes,
right before a stop sign.
and this is what I'm saying, is that I'm the woman who put the signs up on her garden hooks, people, friends, neighbors, um, because people are constantly running that stop sign. And so I would just putting in a vote for speed tables in front of those suggestions to stop. That's all. Thank you. Sorry, I'm shutting up now.
No worries, but this is so we can get your comments.
I mean, but it's just like they blast through them like there's no tomorrow. It's the Autobahn at rush hour, and we all know it. And so if we could get speed tables, which would be easier for our friend over on Rosedale, that might be just ideal for our neighborhood. That's all. That's my vote. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much. Marianne, you have your phone, or you have your hand raised, and you are allowed to unmute.
Thanks. Yeah, I want to piggyback on that. Before we take the poll, I'm interested in knowing what prevents these from becoming speed tables as opposed to speed humps.
Your comments. So we are taking down everyone's comments at this meeting, and we are incorporating them into our design. Speed humps are due to constraints for municipal vehicles, and I'm speaking, trash trucks, fire trucks, certain geometric constraints that a road may have within it. Speed humps are kind of our go-to mitigation method for speed. But through comments and resident feedback, we can absolutely consider and evaluate an intersection for speed tables. Something that may come into play is if a road lacks good surface drainage conveyance. So if there is a lot of ponding at that intersection, more complex engineering analysis needs to go into whether or not a speed table might make that all worse. We don't want to flood any intersections, and we don't want to cause any sort of harmful rainwater detention. So that's just another facet that goes into our evaluation.
Sure. I'm not talking just about an intersection. I'm talking about, transitioning all of these potentially to speed tables. I'm interested in knowing if that's a possibility. Not that you're promising anything, but your go-to is speed hump. I'm wondering, can you transition these to speed table as a concept?
Speed. Let me think very briefly on that. One moment. So with the number of driveways and how the driveways are arranged, that wider speed table may not be feasible.
Sure.
Without putting it in front of someone's driveway.
Right. That's the question. That's the answer I'm trying to understand. I think it's important to have that possibility out there and to have you folks, sharpen your pencils and see what's possible. But I understand what the limitation may be. Also, just to add to what you said about flooding, we had quite an extensive stormwater project here several years ago. And I hope that the city is on top of making sure that any of these devices, if they're installed, are not going to impact that negatively.
Yes. That will absolutely be within our engineering analysis. To answer Jenny's Q&A question, so why not bump outs? We are now reevaluating bump outs. The initial idea with speed humps being the primary focus was that speed was a major concern for all of the respondents to the initial questionnaire. And speed humps are a really good way of slowing people down that is foolproof every time. Bump outs they are a visual narrowing of the road. They are not a vehicle prohibition of speed. So instead of a physical barrier to driving quickly, they are suggesting that driving quickly may cause curb rash on your wheels, or you might get a tire caught somewhere that you don't want it. And it's a less foolproof way of slowing people down. But considering the large questions about bump outs, we will now be considering them as long as they do not negatively impact our drainage. All right. Just in an effort for time, we're going to start with polling. So I will thank you, Christy, for launching the question. Do you support device number 1, which is a speed hump? Your options are, yes, I support this device and live in the project area. Yes, I support this device and do not live in the project area. No, I do not support this device and live in the project area. And no, I do not support this device and do not live in the project area. Again, this is a speed hump on Springbrook Avenue, north of Butternut Street.
I'll just add, sorry, Christina.
I'm just going to answer the Q&A real quick by Sophia. Does the red line mean project area? No, it's just a designator of which traffic device you're currently polling about. It's not the total project area. It's just a segment. And to answer Jenny's, this is just for device number 1 on Springbrook, not all the devices on Springbrook. If you would prefer a speed table to a speed hump, then no would be your answer. Thank you for asking the question, anonymous attendee.
I would just add, while we've got these polls up, if you had, we know that on Rosedale, there's a preference from some for speed table. So, when we're going one by one on these devices to get feedback on just this device. If there's something else that we want to consider, or something else that we were talking about curb extensions, or we were talking about speed tables, if you now would be a good time to add that so we can take notes on that, because we have 7 devices to get voting through. We have less than 25 minutes left of our meeting. Typically I could generate a bunch of other alternate polling, but we can document it if folks can use the Q&A or raise their hand, we can take notes down.
Speaking of which, we have just had a Q&A. Unfortunately, there is no option for not sure. I need more info and want to hear about alternatives, etc. I recommend voting no. We are considering additional options for this area. And that can be your vote if you would like us to consider different options. All right, it looks like we have 8 of 13 attendees have responded. I'm going to give it another 30 seconds for you to get your vote in if you have not yet voted, just so we can get through the other 6 devices. All right, I have closed the poll and I'm going to share the results. 5 out of 8 people voted yes, they support this device. 2 out of 8 people voted that they do not support this device. And then 1 voted that they do not support this device and they also do not live in the project area. All right, so our second device is launching now. This is voting for the device at also on Springbrook, south of Butternut Street. It is a speed hump, and your options are yes, you support this device and live in the project area. Yes, you support this device and do not live in the project area. No, you do not support this device and live in the project area. And no, you do not support this device and do not live in the project area. As a reminder, you are just voting on this specific device. All right, I'm going to give it another 30 seconds just for any stragglers that may want to contribute, and then we'll shut it down and share. And for clarity, when I say in the project area, I don't mean in specific proximity to this one singular device. I mean within the broad project area of Springbrook, Rosewood, or Redwood and Rosedale, not just immediately adjacent to each individual device. But knowing that, I will end this poll and share the results. 4 out of 8 support this device. 3 out of 8 do not support this device. And then 1 out of 8 does not support this device and does not live in the project area. Maybe. We got a Q&A that was just a comment indicating that this person would prefer speed tables to speed humps, provided they can meet the accessibility needs of our neighbors, and they would prefer speed tables to bump outs. Thank you very much for your feedback. Now I will launch device number 3, which is on Redwood Avenue between Springbrook and Rosedale. Your options are identical as all the previous options. For accessibility, I will read them out loud again. Yes, you support this device. Yes, you support this device and do not live in the broad project area. No, you do not support this device. And no, you do not support this device and you do not live in the overall project area. All right, I'm going to give it another 30 seconds to get any stragglers. We usually get 8 respondents, so I'm going to hold off until I get that 8th person. Just one more person left, but if you don't vote in the next 10 seconds, I'm closing it out. All right, ending the poll and sharing results. So we've got 4 out of 7 that do support this device, and then 3 out of 7 that do not. All right, for device number 4 on Rosedale. Options are, as always, yes, you support this device. Yes, you support this device and do not live in the project area. No, you do not support this device. And no, you do not support this device and do not live in the broad overall project area. We only got 7 out of 8 last voting sequence, so hoping for 8 out of 8 this time. We do have a comment by an anonymous attendee. They are interested in bump outs at device number 3. Thank you very much. We are taking that down as a note. All right, we have 8 responses. You get 10 seconds if any of the other attendees want to vote. And then I'm closing this out and sharing the results. All right, this was a 50-50 split. 4 out of 8 do support this device, and then 4 out of 8 do not support this device. All right, device number 5, which is a speed hump on Rosedale, where they're moving farther south. Yes, you support. Yes, you support, but do not live in that area. No, you do not support, and then no, you do not support, and you do not live in the project area. Oh, you guys are quick this time. All right, another 10 seconds, and then I will close it out for you. This one is another 50-50 split for 4 out of 8 do support the device, and then 4 out of 8 do not support the device. All right, device number 6 is the last speed hump on Rosedale specifically. With all previous options as previously stated. And it is the furthest south speed bump on Rosedale. Thank you, number 8. I know you were a straggler again, but I appreciate your vote. Ooh, 9, plot twist. All right, another 10 seconds, just in case anyone else wants to vote. All right. So 5 out of 9 support this device and do live in the project area, and 4 out of 9 do not support this device and live in the project area. All right, and device number 7 is the final speed bump on Redwood Avenue. This one is east of Rosedale and between Rosedale and Platt. All right, I will hold off another 10 seconds just in case any stragglers wish to vote. Number 9, thank you for joining us again. We appreciate your vote. I understand people may have to walk away or might be unable to vote at a specific time. It's just always fun and interesting to see how many vote per device. All right. So 6 out of 9 support this device, and then 3 out of 9 do not support this device. We do have a Q&A that indicates that there is a preference for a speed table at device number 7 by this person. Thank you very much for your comments. All right. Thank you very much for all of your comments on the polls and throughout the course of this meeting. Over the next couple weeks, we will post today's presentation and recording to the project website. We will also be posting a summary of today's polling and use the feedback to create a preliminary plan. The next step will be meeting number 2, Meeting number 2 will consist of 2 parts. One part is a self-guided tour, and the second part is a Zoom meeting. That Zoom meeting is scheduled for Thursday, March 5th. So this self-guided tour. For the self-guided tour, you will receive a mailing packet with at least 2 weeks ahead of the Zoom meeting. The packet will contain device images and descriptions, which can be utilized to complete a self-guided tour prior to the meeting. Approximate device locations will be marked in spray paint on the pavement and display the device image and description on a temporary sign near each location. You can also use Google Street View to conduct the self-guided tour. So if you happen to notice any stakes with paper stapled to them very close to the road near your property, that's us. Please don't pull them out. We would really appreciate if they could stay up so people can conduct the self-guided tour. But those will indicate device locations, device types, so your neighbors and other residents can see what their options are. Meeting at number 2, the Zoom portion is scheduled for Thursday, March 5th at 6 p.m. During the meeting, we will present the preliminary plan, which is the plan that incorporates your comments during this meeting, answer questions, and poll the audience on each device, like the activity we just did. And the last step of the traffic calming process is final polling. After meeting 2, the plan will be finalized and sent to project area residents. All residents and property owners will be mailed the final polling package, which will contain a cover letter, the final plan, and the final poll. Just like the initial questionnaire, you will have the option of submitting your poll by mail or completing the poll online. To continue moving forward in the traffic calming process, more than 50% of responses in support is required. If this criteria is met, our team will prepare an estimate to be submitted to City Council for budget approval. As of now, construction is planned to be coordinated with the 2030 Resurfacing and Utility Improvement Project. So that is 50% of people responding to the final poll need to be in support for it to go through, not 50% of total area residents. It does appear that we are going to push meeting 2 back just so we can refine our design to better focus on your comments provided during this meeting. So updates will be posted to the project website, and also you will receive prior email and a mailing notification of that meeting number 2. Jenny, you are raising your hand.
Yes, did I hear you correctly that it's 2030? 4 years from now?
Yes, to be coordinated with the Resurfacing and Utility Improvement Project. Unfortunately, the traffic devices cannot be installed immediately if this goes through all the way to the end, because they would need to be removed in order for that utility improvement to go in. And in order to best utilize current funding and for efficiency of labor, they have to be installed in coordination with that program.
I can add to that, Christina, too. I know that there was discussion of potentially phasing some of the devices, but as a general statement, it will be coordinated with that 2030 project.
I am finding additional information to address the Q&A regarding number of households.
48. Sorry, I was looking it up
Thank you.
also. 48, but we also send mailers to if there's like a property owner who lives at has a different mailing address but owns a property within the project area. We also send them as well as whoever may be residing there.
I believe the final tally was 59 letters the last time I sent out mailers.
We are running close to end of meeting time. Before Anne Marie speaks, I just want to reiterate the Christina, there's a question about are there additional meetings for further design iterations? So we will have our next meeting will show the preliminary design. Originally it was planned for March 5th, but we will have to postpone that due to the consideration for ADA. And it sounded like maybe there would be some discussion about the sidewalks, but primarily for the ADA. So yes, we will only have one additional meeting for the preliminary design, but we will have some more time to look at things further. And you know, between now and that next meeting, you know, I'll move it to the next slide. My contact information is on there. Christina's is also on the project website. So if there's additional, you know, context or things that you think of after today that you want to share, you can reach out to us, and we'll just have more context to go into that preliminary design. But go ahead, Anne Marie.
Okay, let me just thank you guys for doing this for us. We really appreciate it. But secondly, is this utility update, is there somewhere we can go to to get more information about the utility update that's happening?
I believe it should be on the Engage website, unless Christy, you know a little bit more about that.
We can make sure to include a direct link on the discussion summary that we'll post, that we'll share to the project website. I know Ann Arbor will have a dedicated project page for it. It's if you look up capital improvements project on their website, they will have, I believe it's also an interactive map that can give you some information, but we'll make sure to include that link in the discussion summary.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Appreciate you.
We're literally just 3 minutes shy of end time. I'm gonna launch that demographic again. It's anonymous. It's not required. It's not part of this. It's just something the city does. But I guess the last few that we have, oops, I did not mean to close that window. The last thing I would say is if you have, if you want to be added to our email notification list, that doesn't replace the physical mailings that you get, but if you just want a heads up by email, you can drop your email in the chat box, or you can take note of the contact information here that I'm so desperately trying to put up very quickly, and reach out to me, and I'll make sure that you're added to the list.
Much for that.
But otherwise, if there's any last, I'm not sure if this meeting automatically ends, but thank you so much for attending. Thank you for giving up this big chunk of your evening. I hope everyone has a great rest of their evening, and we look forward to meeting up with you again and letting you know when that next meeting will be rescheduled for. I do see there are a few things that we did not catch in the Q&A. I'll take note of them. Christina, they'll be, we can just add them to that discussion summary.
Thank you. I know a couple of the questions need to be run through the city as well. So
yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to end the meeting.